Hi, everyone. I think we'll kick this off. Hopefully everybody's joined, and if not, hopefully they'll join in the next couple of minutes. So first of all, we'll introduce ourselves. I am Guy. I'm a gaming growth manager here based in Dublin, working with gaming app developers.
And I'm also Guy. I'm the regional lead for re-engagement in mobile apps. So yeah, I think we can start. We'll go through the slides. I guess you will have questions. If you have questions, just write it down and maybe escalate that to your account managers in Google. We'll be more than happy to join to calls, like follow-up calls, or answer emails with questions, etc., etc. I don't think we have time for questions in this session. But yeah, definitely we will be more than happy to answer through your account managers. So yeah.
So I think today we'll be going through Google App Campaigns engagement ads for gaming. So this is for gaming app developers looking to re-engage with users that you lost, and we'll be showing you some of like the basics on how to do it right with Google App Campaigns.
So why we actually need re-engagement campaign? Why we are looking to re-engage with our customers? So according to our research, you can see that basically 75% of smartphone users have downloaded an app, but actually forgot to open the app or forgot to use the app. This is actually a significant number, because think about the potential with re-engage with those customers and make them to complete the conversion, actually to complete the action that you want them to do within your app. 37% of the installs remain in use only after 7 days. And again, think about all the churn part. And actually, I think we have more updated like research.
Yeah, specifically for gaming.
For gaming, yeah, later on today. But this is like across all verticals. But still, we're talking about 37% that's actually staying active. So we are losing a significant amount of users after 1 week. And the last thing is 52% of existing customers in the end spending more in in-app purchases than new one. That means that a customer who already has your app, most likely he will spend more like spend more within the game, and this is something that we can definitely leverage to our behalf. We can move forward. So as I mentioned before, re-engagement is basically the last part in the funnel. So before we talked with you a lot on pre-launch strategy, we talked about launch strategy. I think in every event we mentioned that. In the last year, we also include the post-launch, which is actually the re-engagement. In the post-launch phase, we are thinking about how we can re-engage with our users, how we can actually reacquire valuable users, how we can leverage our current user base in order to increase our ROI. This is something that basically should be part of your re-engagement strategy. And I mean, hopefully, following this workshop, you will have more sense how to come up with your strategy. In terms of like when is the right time, or when is the right moment to launch re-engagement? So again, in the pre-launch or in the launch period, most likely you will see a lot of users coming over and spending more and more within your app. But at some point, you manage to acquire pretty much the entire market that's relevant for you. And actually, in this point, you will start to see the revenue going down. So the ROI is first of all, you will see more churn users, and then of course, following that, you will see less revenue coming from the app, within the app. And I think this is actually the sweet point. The sweet point is actually before you're starting to lose, but not too much early. So you need to maximize your market capabilities. You need to collect more and more users. You need to have more database, and then that would be the right point to re-engage with your customers, especially when we're talking when we're talking about gaming customers, that basically we can like re-engage with them and make them to spend more with more features that we can include in the app or in the game, and compete with new users, etc., etc. So I think it's really up to you and up to your game to decide what would be the right moment. But the sweet point, as I mentioned, is not too early, but of course not too late.
Yeah. Cool. So just following up on that point, this is what we mentioned in the beginning. So going more granular into gaming specifically. So the average return rates here are based on an Adjust study that was published, and as you can see, after 7 days, it is around 38% retention for casual games, and after 30, it's only 12. There are strategies to boost your return on ad spend overall to keep these users engaged. So either by increasing the retention rate, so making the game itself more sticky and enabling new features, maybe competitions within the game, offering bundles, all those different things for users who are currently in the game, so they don't churn. Graduate non-payers to payers, so getting your users who are currently not monetizing in the game to monetize, and getting more from your most valuable users, which I think is the point that we'll try to elaborate on today. How do you get users who you already know are worth a lot and are valuable to spend more or spend again once they stopped? So yeah. What we did here with our internal analysis is split users into 5 buckets or 5 groups. And as you can see here, obviously green is good, red is less. So we're trying to get users to go up and to the right of our graph. We want our users to be active payers or active high ad monetized users if your game is more ad funded. But basically what we are trying to do is to keep the users engaged and to enable monetization for our game with these users. So these are the steps that we can take in order to sort of make that process possible and make that happen. And the most sort of initial basic phase of doing that is to get users who are inactive to be active again, and getting users who are payers and are inactive to come back and pay again, which is where re-engagement really comes into play in the most obvious sense of re-engagement. So the first step that we'll walk through, and I know it's a lot of words, so I'm just going to give you like the bullet points of things to keep in mind, is getting inactive users back in the app. So this sort of re-engagement campaign can work for any gaming app developer there is, whether you're in-app purchase monetized or ad monetized. It really can work for both if you have a mix as well, of course. And it's basically trying to drive your DAU, your daily active users number up, right? Which is good for any game. So if it's a game that is ad monetized, obviously the more users you have, the more ads they view, the more money you can make. If it's an in-app purchase-based game or a competition-based game, you increase your daily active users, you increase the engagement the users that are currently using the game have, and the overall churn decreases. The way we set it up is usually just similar to an install campaign. You just bid on a session start and aim for that event. In terms of the creative, try to give a user a reason to come back with something that either is happening in the app or is new. And in terms of the users to target, it's just users that are already lapsed. So that depends on your retention numbers and your internal data on after how many days do you know that the user is not going to come back? Guy is going to cover that a bit later as well. The second type of campaign that we wanted to highlight today is getting lapsed payers back in the app. Here, as you can see, the primary objective is ROI, because basically we know these users were valuable to your game, and they are no longer generating revenue, no longer monetizing. So how can we sort of get them back into our ecosystem? These are good users that you care about, and are worth investment for you. So the audience is obviously lapsed payers. So similar to lapsed user, you need a user who is not active for a certain amount of time based on your internal data, and that has made a purchase before. In terms of how do we optimize the campaign, so it's usually similar to a CPA campaign for purchase when you go to user acquisition, but here it's going to be a re-engagement campaign optimizing towards a purchase event. What we sometimes see here is as well, if it's like a very high qualified user, also we can target them with a session start. So if that's something that you want to discuss with your account manager, that's definitely possible to try and test both and see what works better for you. In terms of a creative, so it's very similar, trying to give a reason to come back. If there is a special offer that you can promote for that payer in order to incentivize them coming back, try and do that. But yeah, these are the two type of campaigns that are, let's say, the easiest to onboard, and also the easiest to sort of understand the value of, because these are users that are no longer active, and you get them back in. So that is incremental sort of use case.
So yeah, now we can talk about how to build your audience list. Yeah, so as Guy mentioned, the primary reason to focus on lapsed payers is ROI, and we will use this example as example number one. So basically, we are aiming to have two type of lists: the lapsed user list, which we call A, and the paying users, which actually B. And in the end, what we are going to do is like combination list within our own user interface. And basically, we are combining those two lists, and we are focusing only on the lapsed users that are actually relevant for our campaign. So let's see how it looks like in our user interface. As you can see, you have the option to choose the list member, OS, and of course your app name. You actually also can define the time frame. So if you want to focus on the users in the last who actually didn't visit your app in the last 10 days or 20 days or 30 days, it's really up to you. But in the end, I mean, usually we're focusing around between 7 to 10 days. But again, it's really like it depends on your business,
game
on your app,
genre,
on the
and
game,
your internal data.
And the last thing is actually the membership duration. Usually we're putting that on 30. This is actually the default, but again, you can change it and modify that according to your needs. This is, by the way, the screenshot from our own AdWords audience builder. So you have it within your own AdWords account. The second example is for lapsed users, and same like in the previous one. Here we need to choose the list member. In this case, it will be took specific action within the app. We will choose the OS account name, app name, and again we need to choose the people who are actually following the action within the app. Those guys they must be to be matched to the rule group that we chose. So in this type, you like in section E, you will choose the match type, and of course we need to also put the rule, and of course here again we need to put the membership duration. It's better to like in case we are doing a combination list, it's better to do like the duration should be pretty much the same between the two lists. And then this is the combination part, which basically we're using our own audience builder. Within AdWords, we're clicking on audience and then custom combination. Over there, we're choosing actually the list that we want. So in this case, list number 1 is the pairs, and list number 2 is the laps. And again, we are choosing the option end. So basically, we want to have the people, the pairs and the laps together. And in the end, we'll focus on the very, very thin part of the audience that actually following the both rules.
Cool. So now that we know how to set up the audience, we'll go over how to build the right assets and the right creatives to make re-engagement work. It's a little different than UA creatives, so we'll go over a few highlights on how to make that work. First of all, where are these ads going to be shown? So as you can see here, we have it across the Google network. Some of the inventory is yet to be released. Google Play will be released soon, but the rest of Google App Campaigns is.
When I'm saying soon, it's most likely it will be in H1 2020.
Okay,
yeah.
That's soon. Yeah. So how do we build assets to make those inventories work for us? So in terms of general recommendations, show the users why they should be returning to your app. Are there new levels, new features, new characters, new events, or something that is happening now in order to get them going? Usually that is something that will also invoke emotion. So that's the second point, right? Try to use something that makes the user feel reconnected to the game. So either using the language of, we missed you, or this character is waiting for you to come back, stuff along those lines tend to work well. Try to focus on, let's say, more in-game footage and things that will make the user connect to the experience they had before, versus more theatrical or cinematic types of video or images, because the user is already pre-qualified. They already know what's in the game. So try to connect them back to that experience. Tailor the assets to the audience you're targeting. So let's say if you are doing a campaign that is targeting lapsed users versus lapsed payers, the creative should be a little different, because the language you use should either evoke a user to just come back, or you also want them to come back and make a purchase, which is a bit different. So maybe you can offer a special promotion in the creative for a previous payer versus just trying to evoke emotion and get the user to come back when it's somebody who is only lapsed but never paid before. If you can use sort of past cues to strengthen the brand recall in terms of characters, language, colors, that's always great. And the game title should be there always in order to make sure that that connection in the user's brain happens right away. So the user that you're trying to re-engage with most likely likes the game. So if he or she sees a game that they played before, they will be more likely to reconnect. In terms of how do we make this a bit more actionable for the campaign that we said, so I went over some of these examples, but think about the situation of the targeted user. If it's a lapsed payer, then probably they were a big fan of the game, but maybe another game came out, and now that user is distracted, playing something else, and you need to sort of shift their attention back into your game. Maybe that user reached sort of a pinch level of where they felt like they couldn't go on further without making a substantial purchase. So how can we solve this sort of problem for that user? Maybe we can offer a free upgrade in the creative. Maybe we can offer a special promotion. I mean, let's say there was Black Friday not so long ago. There's going to be Christmas. Maybe we're doing a special promotion around Christmas, and we can highlight that to the user. Maybe the bundle that they wanted to purchase is now available for 50% of what it was when they churned. So try to use that in the creative. And in terms of like the call to action, either you use the special promotion that you have going on, or try to use some sort of emotion in order to get them back and engage. Cool. Now we will go over the conversion event and the bid. So we went over it in brief before, but I'll just highlight a couple of things. In terms of the general bidding and event recommendations, so think about the action that you want the campaign to optimize towards. Think about the KPI that you are being measured against in this campaign. If, for example, this is a DAO-based campaign, a daily active users-based campaign, we're looking at retention numbers, we're looking at churn levels. So try to optimize towards either folks reopening the game, or maybe a retention event, they do a level completion, something along those lines, in order to make sure that you reach your target KPI. If this is a purchase campaign, it's most likely measured based on ROAS and ROI. So we need to optimize towards an action that will facilitate the algorithm providing you with that user. So for example, a purchase, or maybe there is a proxy event towards a purchase that happens a lot. So try to use those type of events. But really think first, what are the KPIs that I'm going to be measured against? And then based on that, what is the conversion action that I'm looking for the algorithm to supply me with? In terms of the bid, so it's pretty straightforward in terms of what's written here, but it depends on what that action is worth for you in the game. So if you know that a usual revenue per depositing user is $20, then you can bid something along those lines. I will recommend always to just look at your UA campaigns for benchmarks. Usually the cost will be cheaper for re-engagement than UA because the audience is pre-qualified. But use the same sort of ballpark of bids, and then with the magic of Google App Campaigns in general, over time you will be able to reduce the bid and make sure that it's hitting your KPIs. But in the beginning, it's important to be aggressive and allow the data points to come into the campaign in order to have a long-lasting, healthy re-engagement campaign. Should you change the bid? So, simple as other Google campaigns, it's recommended to reach a certain level of conversions, so at least 100 conversions per week. And then if you are reaching that, if you're going way over, then the situation is different. So if you're going way over and you feel like, hey, maybe I can be paying a little less, then feel free to play around, to iterate, but give the algorithm enough time to sort of say, okay, I've understood where we are right now, where's the bid, where's my audience, and then move forward. So I wouldn't make changes more than once a week, once in every 2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks, and not dramatic changes as well. Like I mean, try to keep it minor and like do it step by step.
Yeah.
Maybe one thing on that on top. So again, like ACE campaigns based on machine learning. Guy mentioned the data points. So basically, in order to maintain the model, we need to get more and more conversions. So take it into consideration when you're adjusting the bids, when you're adjusting the budget. We actually have a best practices guide that you can get from your account manager. But in the same time, I will say, don't choose a conversion event that would be too deep into the funnel, because in the end, we won't get enough conversion to maintain the model. So at least at the beginning, we have like a learning period. The learning period can take between 3 to 6 weeks. During this period, you might see like overshooting performance or a very high conversions. But like over time, it was like it will actually, the campaign will know to adjust himself, and we'll see more and more good results that actually match to your criteria.
Yeah. Also, another point on that is the learning period is also based on daily budget. So sometimes we see a lot of new developers to re-engagement, testing re-engagement, but with, let's say, $50, $100 daily budget, and then the learning period will be much, much longer because it's about the amount of data points that the algorithm can collect. So if you are trying to test this, talk to your account manager and make sure that you're setting up the campaign for success.
Yeah, maybe one more recommendation around this topic. I wouldn't go to very high budget and bids at the beginning. Again, in the learning period, we want to, give the system to learn the campaign, to learn the audience list, to learn the conversions. But we can do it with like limited budget, limited bids. But in the same time, I mean, I won't go too high, but also not too low. So we need to find again the sweet point where we are getting enough conversions per week. Guy mentioned 100, so yeah, 100 conversions per week, in order to feed the model and keep the campaign scaling. Yeah.
Okay, so now Guy will help you get incrementality right. I think when it comes to re-engagement, a big sort of talking point is incrementality always, especially in the gaming space. How do we know that a user that we're getting from a re-engagement campaign wouldn't have made that purchase anyway? So I'll let Guy answer that.
So maybe from product perspective, actually, yeah, we're going to this one again.
So you have,
yeah.
Okay.
From product perspective, we got a lot of like requests mainly from gaming companies to add incrementality feature within our UI. So this is something that we are working on. I'm not sure when we'll be able to release it, but definitely this is part of our product prioritization for 2020. What I'm trying to say is, I think at that stage, what our base recommendation would be like to figure out together with your account manager what would be the right way to measure success and the right way to measure incrementality. So this is like one like suggestion that we came up with that basically can cover 95% of the cases. We're running. Actually, we did this incrementality test with like huge customers, and the results were good. So I strongly advise you to take this recommendation and try it within your own campaigns. One more thing before I'm going through the talking points is when we are launching incrementality, we want to have a stable campaign. So basically, I wouldn't do it in the first few weeks. Again, the learning period might be a bit bumpy. I will wait until we have like stable campaign with clear bids, clear budget, and then run the incrementality test. So are we actually doing that? Basically, we're taking two groups. We have the like re-engagement group, what we call the test group, and we have the control group. We are taking our user base and divided that to two randomly between those two groups. And with the control audience, we're not serving ads, and with the ACE audience or with the test group, we're actually serving ACE campaigns. Basically, by doing that, we are creating a baseline of users that I mean, they're there and they're basically what we call natural users that keep spending in our app without any re-engagement or every additional visibility to our ads. But when we are actually measuring the uplift that coming from ACE, that will be the incremental lift that we are looking to see in re-engagement campaigns. Okay, so basically we have the baseline, we have the incremental lift that's coming from ACE campaigns, and of course we have still users that never converted, or even though that they saw our ads, they will never convert. But the whole idea is actually to create kind of like a definition between our control group and what type of audience we have in this control group, and our test group, and what type of audience we have in this test group. After we managed to see that actually the campaign providing good results and creating uplift in terms of conversions, in this point we can actually go and expand the campaign to more locations, to open to more audience, different type of conversion events, etc., etc. But again, at the beginning, I would try to see first if the campaign is working well. after we mark that as yes, we can go and expand the campaign to other target locations, etc. We have one case study here, IM30. So basically, this is a gaming company from APAC. They use our app engagement campaigns in their own app and their own game actually, and they saw an uplift of 30% in ROAS. When we actually talked with the marketing director, he actually said that people who are not active in their app for more than 30 days, it's pretty much lost users. So he wouldn't expect to see them coming back after 30 days. That's why the ACE campaign actually helped them to reach out to those guys before the 30 days and bring them back to the game and keep them spending and purchase more and more features within the game. And within doing that, they actually increased the ROI of IM30. So this is one example. We have a lot of other examples. Again, we can share that with you through the account managers. But it was important for us to show you like maybe one good use case where we're talking about like large company with very famous and successful game.
Yeah. And also it fits right in with the example we gave before on the level 1, so sort of getting lapsed players back by determining, you know, after how many days that user is finally lapsed. So we'll go over a quick summary of what we discussed today.
I think we might have even time for questions.
We might have time for a question or two. So just in terms of the main things for you to keep in mind when you're trying to set up an engagement campaign. So the first thing is what event you're bidding on and how aggressively to bid on that event. So the key thing to keep in mind is align the optimization event with your KPIs. So if it's a KPI around ROI, it's likely going to be a purchase or a proxy to a purchase. If it's retention, then something along those lines, or even an app open, if it's daily active users. And make sure that you have at least 100 weekly conversions for the campaign to be able to scale and reach your targets. In terms of the audience, we need the audience to be large enough to reach enough users. So let's say the recommended minimum size is around 10K, but the more the merrier, basically.
Yeah, I think in this case, I mean, you need to know that the best practice said that the audience list should be like around 250,000 users. But we can go for small lists such as 10,000. The trade-off will be to go with higher bid. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like if we are looking for a very, very specific audience, smaller list, we will need to play with the bid and actually increase the bid. Yeah.
Yep. And the last part is creatives. So give a user to come back into the app is what I would say is the most important thing. Make sure that the user that left understand that either there's something new going on or there is a special promotion for that user specifically to utilize. Try and use emotion as well, along with that benefit statement to get users back in and engaged. I would say in terms of the creative assets themselves, stress on videos because those will drive the majority of the traffic usually.
Again, all of this is actually part of our best practices guideline. So it is available for you through the account manager. So feel free to shoot them an email and ask them this talk. Now, I think we have 5 minutes, so I think we can actually go ahead with questions. So if people want to unmute themselves and ask questions, we
have one question here, so we can try and tackle that one. I'll just read it for everyone. From Jan, hope I'm pronouncing it right. How would you suggest utilizing re-engagement for IAA games, as payers are not a metric that will be tracked? what would be your suggestions for best practices? So basically, we talked about this briefly, how to go about ad-funded games, let's say the hyper-casual space, how to make re-engagement work for those games. So usually how we play around that is just trying to get users back in and engaged. So either we go for a session start. Let's say you had a user that was playing your game a lot and was making a lot of money by watching ads. Just by getting that users back in, that might create enough LTV to justify that reacquisition. The cost of the reacquisition will likely be lower than the CPI. So that is one way to go about it. We can also try to optimize towards a number of ads viewed event or a retention event, which will even strongly align you towards your KPI, which is basically making money from ad views. So those are the things I would recommend in terms of what audiences to use. Then either using a very high pre-qualified audience in terms of users who have watched a lot of ads, played your game a lot, and maybe just by getting them back, you can make them repeat that cycle. Or just trying to get users who lapsed after 1 day or 2 days, and then by getting them back, there's a chance that they will engage more heavily and watch more ads because they haven't completed, let's say, the life cycle of your game, which if we're looking at, we talked about casual before, but for hyper casual, the churn rates are even higher in a short amount of time. So that's what I would test.
Cool. More questions?
All right.
Cool.
So thanks so much for your time. And hopefully we gave you a good overview over how to start thinking about re-engagement with games and how to make that work with Google App Campaigns. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your account managers, and we'll be helping anyone we can to try and make sure that you all have the information that's needed.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're gonna also the concept of the message.